Hello, gearheads. Tell me in the comments what your favorite Les Paul model is. Every time you hear an electric guitar solo, every time a band layers harmonies in a studio, every time someone records track after track to build a song, you're hearing the legacy of one man. His name was Les Paul, and he didn't just play the guitar. He reinvented it. He transformed how we record music. And in doing so, he created the sonic foundation for rock and roll, pop, hip-hop, and virtually every genre of modern music. This is the story of how a kid from Wisconsin became the most important innovator in music history. Born Lester William Paulsfuss in 1915, Les Paul grew up in Waukesha, Wisconsin, during the golden age of radio. While other kids played baseball, young Les was obsessed with sound. At age 9, he built a crystal radio set. By 13, he was performing as a country guitarist and calling himself Red Hot Red. But Les wasn't satisfied with just playing music. He wanted to understand it, control it, shape it. His first problem? Volume. In the 1920s and 30s, acoustic guitars simply couldn't compete with the brass and wind instruments in jazz and country bands. They were drowned out. So Les started experimenting. He stuck a phonograph needle into his guitar and connected it to a radio speaker. It was crude, but it worked. The guitar was louder. This wasn't just tinkering. It was a revolution waiting to happen. By the 1940s, Les Paul was a successful musician, but he kept hitting the same wall: feedback. When you amplified a hollow-body guitar, the sound waves would bounce around inside, creating that piercing screech every guitarist knows. The solution seemed impossible. If the problem was the hollow body, could you build a guitar that wasn't hollow? In 1941, Les took a 4x4 piece of solid pine, basically a fence post, and attached guitar strings, pickups, and a neck to it. He called it the log. To make it look more like a guitar, he sawed an Epiphone acoustic in half and attached the sides. The log eliminated feedback because there was no hollow chamber to resonate. The sound came purely from the string vibration, picked up electromagnetically. It was clean, it was loud, and it could sustain notes in ways acoustic guitars never could. But when Les showed it to Gibson Guitar Corporation, they laughed at him. They called it the broomstick with pickups. It would take another decade and the success of a competitor before they'd come crawling back. Multi-track recording. While waiting for the world to catch up to his guitar innovations, Les Paul was revolutionizing something even bigger: how music was recorded. In the 1940s, recording was simple but limiting. All musicians performed together in one room, and whatever was captured on that single take was the final product. No do-overs, no layering, no editing. Les Paul thought, what if you could record one part, then record another part on top of it, and another, and another? He started by recording on one disc, then playing it back while recording himself playing a harmony onto a second disc. This sound-on-sound technique was the birth of overdubbing. But Les wanted more control. In 1948, he convinced Ampex to build him a custom 8-track tape recorder, years before multi-track recording became standard. By 1957, he'd pushed them to build him an 8-track machine that allowed him to record 8 separate parts independently. The results were immediate and spectacular. In 1951, Les Paul and his wife Mary Ford released How High the Moon, a song where Les played multiple guitar parts and Mary sang multiple harmonies, all recorded separately and layered together. It was unlike anything anyone had heard. It hit #1 and stayed on the charts for months. Today, every song you hear, pop, rock, hip-hop, country, uses multi-track recording. Beyoncé layering vocals, Jack White building guitar symphonies, Hans Zimmer creating film scores. None of it would exist without Les Paul's obsession with recording technology. The Gibson Les Paul. Remember how Gibson laughed at Les Paul's solid-body guitar in the 1940s? Well, in 1950, a California inventor named Leo Fender released the Fender Broadcaster, later renamed the Telecaster. It was a solid-body electric guitar, and it was selling fast. Gibson panicked. Suddenly, that broomstick didn't look so ridiculous. In 1952, they approached Les Paul and asked if they could design a solid-body guitar and put his name on it. The Gibson Les Paul debuted in 1952 with a carved maple top, mahogany body, and a gorgeous gold finish. It was beautiful, yes, but more importantly, it sounded incredible, warm, thick, with sustain that seemed to last forever. Early models didn't sell as well as Gibson hoped, and they actually discontinued the Les Paul in 1960. But then something happened. British blues and rock guitarists discovered them in used instrument shops. Eric Clapton played one with John Mayall's Blues Breakers. The album cover showed him with a sunburst Les Paul, and suddenly everyone wanted one. Jimmy Page, Slash, Joe Perry, Peter Frampton, Gary Moore, Randy Rhoads. The Gibson Les Paul became the rock guitar, and it remains one of the most iconic instruments ever created. The innovator never stopped. Even as Les Paul became a legend, he never stopped innovating. He pioneered close miking techniques for recording. He experimented with tape, speed manipulation to create unique sounds. He designed the first 8-track recorder. He even contributed to the development of the solid-state recording console. And he never stopped performing. Until he was 90 years old, Les Paul played every Monday night at the Iridium Jazz Club in New York City, his fingers still dancing across the fretboard with the same curiosity and joy they'd had when he was a kid in Wisconsin. Les Paul was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He won multiple Grammys. He received the National Medal of Arts. But perhaps his greatest achievement wasn't any single award. It was the fact that his innovations became so fundamental to music that they're now invisible. Think about it. Every time someone records a podcast and edits out mistakes, that's Les Paul. Every time a producer layers drum tracks, bass, guitars, and vocals, that's Les Paul. Every time a guitarist holds a note and lets it sustain and sing, that's Les Paul. Les Paul didn't just invent technologies. He changed how we think about music itself, from something that had to be captured in a moment to something that could be constructed layer by layer with precision and creativity. The guitar you hear on the radio, the way albums are recorded, the very sound of modern music. It all goes back to a kid in Wisconsin who looked at a guitar and asked, "What if?" Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out our other stories about the people who changed music history. And remember, the next innovation might come from someone asking, "What if?"